Hey guys, Travis here. You know what I miss the most ever since becoming a puppet? Using the bathroom. I know, as weird as it sounds, it's not the actual using the bathroom part, it's having at least some kind of privacy inside of a room with at least a toilet for me to sit down on. I never taken something for granted so hard as being able to sit down from my own free will. The stupid strings keeping me suspended and forced to stand up straight make me long for the days of being able to sit down all by myself. King Creole has been treating me worse than usual lately. I don't know if I did something or he's still mad about me smashing my face into his. But now, every day before we lock up shop, he puts his arm around me and invites me down into the basement. Since I didn't listen to you guys and I was so dang curious about it. He drags me down there and forces me to just stand there and watch while he uses all types of things to beat Mary with. Look, I may have thought before that she deserved whatever she was getting from Creole, but seeing it day after day is starting to make me afraid for myself. What happens when he starts treating me like her? She's porcelain, and to some extent, she's grown numb to everything. She just takes it, waiting for it to be over. Me, on the other hand, I'm human. Or I guess my body is pretty much human. And I've seen what Creole does to humans that piss him off. One day, before locking up, I was doing my usual, standing at the counter, wondering of ways to end my eternal suffering, when the bell at the shop door clanged, bringing my button eyes over to the person who had just wandered into our lovely shop. He was a heavyset guy, tall, and bundled up in a jacket since it was so cold out. He looked at me with about as much discomfort I usually had towards myself whenever I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. "Hello, sir, and welcome to Old King Creole's half price voodoo shop," I sang in my stupid greeting voice. All the while, subconsciously, I was telling this guy to stick a knife in my heart and just end me. Not too different from when I was human and working here, now that I think about it. "Yeah, whatever, you freak. Is your boss here? I'm told he can make problems disappear," the guy said, looking around the shop and sneering at all of our items, and probably all the cobwebs everywhere. Although I've never actually seen a spider here, and I live at the shop now, so I have no idea how all these webs show up here. "He sure can. I'll go fetch him right away," I sang cheerily. The strings attached to me forced me to walk over to the office and tap it lightly to a little tune. God, I wanted so badly to just smash my face into the wall when I was forced to act like this. "Oh, sir, we have a customer looking for you," I said happily, stepping back when the door flung open. Creole smiled with the stitches on his mouth giving a nice creaking sound as they threatened to snap. He waltzed over, patting my combed hair like I was a dog, and heading to the counter to meet with this man that had just wandered into our shop. "What can I do for you, Paul?" he asked with a cheery laugh, his gloved fingers drumming on the counter as he looked at the man and waited for an answer. The man gave the same look to Creole he had gave me before shrugging and handing him a business card. "My buddy Pat said that you can make problems go away," he said, crossing his arms that rested on his beer gut and waiting for Creole to respond. He seemed shifty, like the kind of guy you see on wanted posters, or the kind you look out for if you belong to a neighborhood watch. "Ah, of course. What is the nature of your problem? I do hope it is easier to solve than Patrick's was. Quite a mess he got himself into," my boss tissed, looking over to me and motioning me to come over, the strings yanking me over there since I really had no choice but to obey him. "I need to lay low for a couple of days. Feds are on my ass about some allegations of the sexual sort," Paul explained. Figures, really. He does look like the type to be involved in something that's as disgusting as that. Creole nodded, the drumming of his fingers stopping once Paul finished. "Well, I can offer you my basement, but it is becoming quite full down there," my boss thought aloud, holding his chin as he did so. His button eyes scanned this man, but soon the smile he always had plastered on his face went away, and a look of disgust came across it. "On second thought, I can definitely squeeze you in," he chuckled, walking past me and patting me on the shoulder as he led the man to the basement door. "Travis, be a good boy and close up shop for the night," he said to me, as he unlocked the basement and allowed Paul to enter first. I looked at him and quickly nodded. Being dragged over to the door, I flipped a sign to say we were closed and locked the door, turning my attention back to the basement door and realizing I had regained control of my body. I took that glorious opportunity to stretch as if I'd never done it before. God, the feeling of my popping joints feels incredible now. Taking this slim window of opportunity, I walked into the boss's empty office, looking around for anything to aid me in my current predicament. I didn't have much luck since once again, the only item that King Creole has in his office seems to be sewing supplies and buttons. And I don't think any of that is going to help me here. My attention turned from his office to the basement when I heard Paul start to scream, along with hard smacks and the sound of something wooden breaking. "Travis, get down here, boy!" Creole's voice ordered me, forcing my body to stand up perfectly straight and forcing me down the basement steps. The best way I can describe the feeling is of sleep paralysis, being able to move while all the while freaking the fuck out. Walking down into the basement and reaching the end, I almost wanted to do a 180 and start walking back up the stairs. Paul was being hung by a meat hook from the wall, and Creole was slowly sharpening a knife on a nearby whetstone. His look was one of anger until he turned and saw me. That big scowl flipped into a big, wide smile. "There you are, boy." "Hello, sir. What are you doing with the customer?" I asked, surprisingly for once being able to agree with whatever my mouth was saying. Creole chuckled as he walked over to me and grabbed me by my combed hair, stroking the now extremely sharp knife against my stitched up neck. I backed up a bit, but he pulled me back into it. "Why, I'm making his problem disappear," he said with a soft, low hum, pulling away and coming over to Paul, who had his mouth tightly sewn up and was just able to mumble and thrash about on the meat hook. Creole approached the man and dug the knife in his stomach deeply, causing a silent scream to come from his sewed up lips. "I'm sure you're just giving him the swift justice he deserves, sir," I said, clapping my hands and smiling at him like the kiss ass he had turned me into. Now, I've got a pretty in depth understanding of how Creole's morality works. He'll never harm a child, but will harm their parents if he deems it worthy of his intervention. Anybody coming into the store and asking for a wish is instantly damned for being selfish in what they ask for, no matter the wish. And he absolutely despises molesters and rapists. Guess this guy filled one of those categories. My attention was turned from the torture in front of me to Mary, who motioned for me to come over. I looked over to Creole and was able to force my body to walk over to the porcelain woman, looking down at her as she struggled to keep herself up, her legs having been broken into shards and barely back together. "He'll be at this for a couple of hours," she sighed, offering me a spot to sit down. I looked at it and sat down. She pulled herself onto a pile of clothes and sighed as she brushed back her wild and messy blonde hair. "Child molester. He'll take his sweet time with this one," she explained to me, looking over with her single eye. Despite all the time she was put back together, she always had a hole where the right part of her face and eyes should have been. What's he going to do with him?" I asked, trying to make conversation with the woman in a similar predicament to me, although she had suffered for far longer than I have been. "Peel off all his skin, use it to make voodoo dolls, and leave the rest of him to me," she sighed. The weight of her decades of torture weighed heavily on her. When I raised a hand to comfort her, she immediately shirked away from me and silently shook her head. She didn't like to be touched at all. I can understand where she's coming from. "Is there any way to save ourselves?" I asked her, hoping for any bit of information she had, but she simply responded with another silent shake of her head, a chip of porcelain falling off her face and falling onto the floor. She had given up decades ago. "What was he like before this?" I asked, looking up as Creole cackled in delight as he sliced off the molester's skin. Well, at least I agree with his actions here. Truth be told, I would have asked for a turn myself if I knew how to skin properly, but maybe that's just my slowly slipping sanity talking. Try saying that 10 times fast. He was an idiot, a sweet, adorable idiot who was just too stupid for his own good. She sighed hard, rubbing her cracked face and letting out a long, haggard breath. He was sweet. He really was. A mama's boy who brought me back to my house on time and showed up on time, exactly on the dot, she said with a sad sigh. So why did you do it? I asked her, my button eyes turning my attention from the torture in front of me over to her. It still made no sense for me as to why she would kill Charles Sumner and lead to his transformation into King Creole. I was young and stupid, and I was blinded by money and the fast life and having sex. Charles was such a prude that he wouldn't have sex with me until we were married. I wouldn't have cared if he didn't drill the point into me every single day. She groaned, both of us receiving a savage stink button from Creole as he turned to see what we were doing and talking about. But he quickly turned back to having his fun with Paul, starting to cut into his face. So, you asked your mob boyfriend to kill him? I asked her, seeing that she was indeed a selfish whore. In Creole's words, not mine. It wasn't supposed to go like that. I just wanted Henry to beat him up enough to scare him into leaving town. But then Charles had to go and win that contest. When Henry found out about the $10,000, he wanted it. And so he tortured Charles into giving it to him. Then he told me that they had accidentally killed him. She explained, sitting up and looking at me with her glass green eye. Looking at me with, I have to admit, the most sincerity I'd ever seen from her. I take it that Mama Creole didn't take too happy to her son being murdered. I asked her, using the distraction that Creole was having as getting some much needed information from a primary source. Not at all, she said with a soft chuckle, the kind of person gives when they realize how fucked up their situation is. I know that chuckle real well. She suspected me from the start, and since Henry was an idiot and didn't hide the body at all, she found Charles. And the rest is my horrible story, she explained. She really was a flawed person. But was I any better? I'd helped my boss cover up murders, gotten rid of bodies for him. I was no better than her, really. Is she still with us? Is she an immortal voodoo creation like her boy? I asked, looking for any way to get out of our situation, but she responded with a shake of her head. She died in 1960, I think. Old age. Creole was devastated. He didn't come down here for over 6 months. She didn't want immortality, so she just went quietly into the ether. She sighed, flinching when a chunk of human meat was flung at the two of us. Both of us looked up in terror when Creole pointed the blood-soaked knife at us. Do not speak of my mother, you fucking whore, he snarled, lifting his leg up and stomping her face in, sending the girl flying backward into the pile of bones that was behind us. He next turned to me and pointed the knife right at me. I raised my hands to show I meant no harm, but he just chuckled at me. There's no way of getting out of your situation, Travis. You're my special store clerk, my good little boy, and my very own puppet. He smiled, snapping his finger, my body going stiff again and being forced to stand up straight. You are correct, sir. I am at your eternal service, I said with my stupid yes man tone, wanting so badly to rip that knife from his gloved hand and plunge it into his chest. But all I could do was smile like a jackass and follow his order to take all the skin he had peeled up to his office. Taking it in my hands and starting up the stairs, I sighed through my nose hard. This was going to be my life now, wasn't it? The slave of an undead voodoo man. Why did I have to be an idiot and get involved in all this? Why didn't I listen to you guys and just stay away from the basement? I was about to start making $30 an hour, goddammit. Why did I have to ruin all that? I thought all of this as I came upstairs and came face to face with the police officer. We looked at each other before we both looked down at what I had in my hands, then back up at each other. Well, how the hell will I explain this? Turns out I didn't have to. I'm here to wish for something, the woman said. She was middle aged, looked like she was a hard ass, but her tone of voice really set me back. I looked down at the skin in my hand and thought for a second. Yeah, let me just put this away and I'll get my boss, I said, far enough away from Creole for me to be able to control my actions. Going to the office, I thought to myself, was she going to be my way out of here? Well, I had some hope for the first time in a while. I should have known not to.